Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone again. How is everyone? I hope everyone's well. This week, like I said before, it's a little bit different. This is a pre-recorded show. So I'm going to share a story with you. It was between my sister and her friend Amina. We had my sister on last week and she shared her story, talking about different things from her childhood, growing up, to wearing the hijab and what she did to improve her situation for where she wanted to be. She also mentioned things about women's rights, marriage, and the importance of it in Islam, and that was, it was nice to see. Now, as always, this show is in connection with the charity Wolverhampton Muslim Outreach, a charity made by community members for the community to help anyone in their time of need, by the means of which they are able to support. You can get in contact with them via WhatsApp on 077 265 84473 to discuss your needs or how you are able to help. Now, one thing I forgot to do whilst on the show when I'm live, and I didn't realise this until a couple of days ago, is that it's obviously streaming on Facebook Live, and comments were coming in, and I wasn't responding to them. I only had the WhatsApp, so apologies to everyone that's commented on the Facebook. I wanted to mention a few of them because I've now seen them, and there's quite a few. So thank you very much for people who mentioned things. You've got Ufu Malik, who said, great show, and Aisha, great, excellent program. My brother Manolo Malik actually mentioned things, said MashaAllah on the program. Naseem Masadi, she enjoyed listening to the true experiences of being a Muslim. Others said, well done for the show, great show, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah. Well done, it's a great show, brothers, good show. Good night, everyone, it's really good, MashaAllah, nice to see you, Dawood, because he was on a couple of weeks ago. And it's good to see the different stories from the Muslim reverts. One person mentioned, had a question, and it was Abu Ishaq from Leicester. He said, Salam both, amazing story and show listening from Leicester. He asked the question, how do you deal with the racism and how can we resolve it? If it's not part of our religion. He also enjoyed the poem that was given by my dad, by the German poet, and he asked, how should we respond to what is happening with the Black Lives Matters situation, and how do we deal with people in our community? What I'll do with this is I'll actually sit down with my sister and my father, and we will do a special one-off show talking about the things that are happening, and we can highlight the things that we've faced and, just give our opinion on what's going on. Because I realise not everyone's opinion in the black community is always the same. There are varied opinions. My opinion's different. There's some things I agree with and some that I don't. And I think it's something that we can talk about and discuss as a community. Also, if there's any topics that the listeners or viewers want to hear and want us to discuss, let me know. Put in the comments in the WhatsApp comments or the Facebook comments, or message me on Instagram. I'll have a look at them all and we can see what we can do, because I know this is a time where there's a lot of things going on in the world, and it's 2020 has been very interesting to say the least. So there's a lot of topics we can cover, and we can talk about them in quite a bit of depth. We've got a good 1 hour shows, and obviously when I put these things on YouTube as well, I can have longer discussions on my podcasts. So yeah, fire them over and I'll have a listen and we'll see what we can do. So today, whilst my sister is talking to Amina, this is a conversation on the phone. There might be some background noise. Hopefully you don't hear much of that and it doesn't interfere. So enjoy the conversation between them, and hopefully you take a bit away from what has happened to our sister Amina. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you?
Oh, alhamdulillah, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. So obviously, we're doing a little series about, talking to reverts and their journeys. And yeah. I find it really interesting because even though I'm not a revert myself, but I feel like I have had a very similar journey to a lot of reverts, as I'm like the only I was the only Muslim woman in my family. So when I, became practicing, alhamdulillah, I had like a list of things that I was like, okay, this is what I have to do if I want to better myself. And then, there was one like wearing the hijab straight away, deleting all social media, deleting all friends that didn't benefit me in any way, or, I didn't talk to, and things like that. But what I find really interesting is like when I was very strict on doing that, like delete, block, delete, block, delete, block. And you were one of the people that, like, when I think now, it's weird because obviously you weren't Muslim when I first met you. So, subhanAllah, you weren't someone that I deleted. And sometimes I think, why were you someone that I didn't delete? Because obviously at the time, you weren't going to be someone that was of, like, benefit. Do you know what I mean? Islamically.
Yes.
And when I was on my phone, I remember seeing a picture, and you said something that was like an Islamic quote, and then I was like, "Who's this?" Like, I clicked on it, I had to scroll right up to be like, "Who's this?" And then I was like, "Oh, it's," I was like, "I think it's you, but I'm not quite sure." So then again, like the next week, you had, I think, another Islamic quote. And then, like, the week after, you had, like, a picture of, like, a woman in a hijab. It looked like you, but she didn't have a face. So I was like, oh, my gosh, So I remember messaging you. So, subhanAllah, that's really interesting to me because I think how Allah works, you could have been someone that I would have deleted and I would never have probably spoke to you again. But because I kept your number and I saw that, like, a year and a half later that you converted to Islam, which was like, whoa, since when I met you, you weren't Muslim, and there was no way that I would have thought you would be Muslim from when I knew you.
I've always been a believer of meeting people in life. Like, everybody's a part of your journey, and just like you said, some people they're there to help you on your journey, and some people will benefit you and some people just won't. So I've just always had like people come onto my journey, and I've never really understood why until I came to Islam. So, and it's so funny that you mentioned that because I had you on my phone, and I've seen that you're still a contact on my list because I had deleted quite a lot of people when I had was starting to switch my life back up, etc.
Yeah.
And I just managed. I honestly thought I deleted you, and you were still on my phone. So subhanallah, you popped up, and I was just like, wow, okay. I wasn't 100% sure that you were a Muslim, but then when we spoke, memories came back up, etc. And I remembered, one of my friends saying, yes, you were a Muslim. And I was just like, oh, subhanallah, this is great,
I know, that's why I find it so interesting. It's like, wow. I don't know, I thought of that before, like, wanting to ask you a question, your journey, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does things. He makes things so easy. And
he does.
Connects you to people who you never would have thought would have helped you on your journey as well. So I just thought that was really interesting. So my question to you is obviously how you came into Islam, because obviously when I met you, you weren't Muslim, and there was sometimes you meet people and you think, oh, they're on a journey, but I obviously didn't. I didn't get that from you at all. I just thought, you just meet people, then they're not Muslim or you don't know anything that they're religious at all. So how did you come into Islam?
My story is a little bit difficult, but it's more of a healing journey. How I came into Islam is I went through quite a lot of things as a child that I didn't understand, and it was more to do with just understanding why things were the way that they were and why I didn't heal from certain things. And it was a very painful process, and it was one of the reasons mainly was because I was just so unwell. I was so I didn't realize at the time that I thought I was physically unwell, but I was going through a lot of depression, and I was going through a lot of anxiety and stress, and I had been for the majority of my life, but I've always been someone who just gets back up and bounces back and just tries to shrug things, put things aside. But I had reached I was 20 years old last year, and I had such a difficult, when I basically moved to London, and I had such a difficult time trying to make it. I just felt like I was trying to strive for something in my life that wasn't meant and that wasn't written for me. And I just didn't understand why things weren't working out. I had experienced a lot of things in London. I was around a lot of negative people, and I was surrounding myself just not with the best of people, and it wasn't good for me spiritually. So I came back home. I came up to Newcastle, and I moved back up here with my mom because I think at that point I just had enough of everything that I had been through, and I was so unwell. My body was so weak, and I just didn't understand, why I had been taking medication and medication wasn't working. But I didn't understand until now that I was spiritually unwell. I didn't have any sort of connection to God. I didn't really know or understand who God was. I grew up a Christian, but I wasn't very practicing, and neither was my mom. So I didn't really have an understanding of any sort of religion apart from, being a Christian and knowing that, people teaching me that Jesus is God, etc. But that just never really sat with me in the first place. I used to want to go to churches, etc., and that there was always something stopping me, because I always had a love for finding my creator, but it was like I was going to the wrong places. So eventually I came back, and I came back to Newcastle, and I wanted to change my life completely. But I realized a lot of things. I had to go, my mom started teaching me how to pray. And it was just so funny how I'm talking about it now, because it was just certain things in life, like the basic things in life that I didn't know. So just like praying, etc. So she was teaching me, she was teaching me just pray, just talk to God. And I'm like, oh, how do you talk to God? I don't understand. But I just, in my heart, I realized I had done a lot of wrong things, a lot of bad things, and I just wanted to change. So I went to Allah with sincerity without even realizing that I was, starting the process of actually becoming well again. And throughout the whole year, I was just up and down. But slowly and surely, I just started going through a lot of things. I started wearing scarves on my head. I didn't realize I was going through the process of actually coming into being a Muslim. I started hanging around with one girl that my mom had actually introduced me to, and she was a Muslim, and she started telling me about Islam. But at the time, I wasn't fully ready for it yet. But I was wearing scarves on my head, and I was just doing it as more as a fashion thing. I didn't think it was going to lead into anything other than that. I just thought, this looks nice, but I didn't think anything of it oh yeah, I look like a Muslim or anything like that. I didn't think anything of that. It was more just I'm doing this because it actually makes me happy. And then after some time, I was getting better, mentally, physically. My body started, becoming a lot better, and I had came so far within a year. People used to tell me, you can really change your life, and I didn't understand that until that actually happened to me. And then eventually, I just felt like I was doing a lot of good things for people, and I just felt like I started feeling a lot lighter, just more happier, and I think one thing that really got me was just wanting to, asking a lot of questions. I started asking a lot of questions about who I really was, who God really was, and what the truth is. I remember going and reading the Bible. And I remember I used to actually leave my mother's house to go to my house, and just like sit by myself, try and fast. I couldn't actually do like a proper fast, just like, you know, like without food and water, because at the time I was so, you know, I wasn't too well. So I started reading the Bible, etc. And there were just some things in the Bible, just from the very beginning, you know, the first couple of pages, that didn't really sit right with me. So, you know, I felt like I wasn't looking for God. This wasn't, you know, it was like, okay, all right. I wanted to accept it, but my heart was like, no. So there was like a day when I was at my friend's house, my Muslim friend's house, and she was talking to me, and she was telling me about this prophet called Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I was just saying to her, like, I just really want the truth. What is the truth? Because, like, I read this in the Bible, and I was telling her what I had read in the Bible, and she said, no, that's not true. You know, it didn't really make sense how, like, just there's some things in the Bible that just don't make sense. How, like, you know, one of the prophets was an alcoholic, which is Nuh alayhi salam, and you know, there was one, like, you know, Ibrahim, you know, and you know, it wasn't really. It was like I didn't understand how a man. How could be three things at once. I didn't understand how God can be three things at once, because if he's one, he shouldn't have to switch positions to declare who he is. So I did right with me. So when I was speaking to her, I was telling her this, and she was just like, no, that's not right. So she started telling me about this the prophet. And obviously, like, I expressed how the things that I had heard about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and what people have said him out to be. How, like, oh, he married a younger child, and you know, it's things like that can really put you off. But she really sat me down. Bless her name is Salama, and she just spoke to me. She said, no, this is the truth. He's the last prophet, and you know, this was the last message, and he revealed the Quran, etc. And you know, like, at that time, like, my heart had actually just accepted it. It was like, this makes sense. Like, I was questioning myself, like, it doesn't make sense how somebody has died on the cross for our sins, yet we're all sinning until today. So that didn't sit right with me anymore. And I was just slowly coming into Islam, slowly coming into Islam. I then started, like, wearing hijab. I started teaching myself how to pray, and, you know, just separating myself from the negative people. I really just wanted to learn more about Islam, because it's so beautiful, and the way it made me feel within my heart. And I remember one of the first things that I had read was Ayatul Kursi, and it is honestly the most powerful, most beautiful part. Like, it's the most beautiful part in the Quran for me, because whenever I'm in distress, and whenever I'm feeling anxiety, whenever I get waswasu, but I remember reciting Ayatul Kursi, and I felt like that was just enough for me. And I remember sleeping that night, and I was feeling in such distress that whole day, because it was like, it's like, oh my gosh, I finally found the truth. Wow, like, I finally found the truth. And it was like a bit of a shock to me. But when I recited Ayatul Kursi before I went to bed, I'm telling you what, I had so much peace in my heart. And it really just made me feel like this is the religion for me. I felt like the majority of my life, I always believed in God, and you know, even though I called myself a Christian, I can't really say I was a Christian, because I wasn't practicing. I read the Bible. It wasn't like I had read the whole Bible, you know. But I then was doing a lot of research, and you know, I was reading something like reverts who come back into Islam, they don't realize, but they've actually been Muslim all their life. And it was just like, wow, so that makes sense. that makes sense. All those times I was trying to go to the church and something was always holding me back, like, you know, speaking tongues and all that stuff. Like, why my own mother would tell me, don't go to the church. If you want to pray at home, but just don't go to the church, you know. And my mom's a Christian. Don't let people touch your heads and do anything, and people, you know, pushing you down and things like that. It was really just like, I don't know what I used to walk into, but now I feel like I've found the right religion. I can pray at home, and it's just like the proper way to worship. So I don't know if that sums up everything, but yeah, alhamdulillah, I'm so glad that I came into this religion, because it was just like, it was really what was meant for me, you know.
So you're talking about, you know, obviously you taught yourself to pray. Where did you get, you know, your knowledge from when coming into the deen?
So I was looking up some videos online, just on YouTube, and it's so funny because, like, a friend of mine, like, she had showed me these videos like the year before, but I didn't pay too much attention to them. But then they were basically videos on YouTube on how I could, like, basically teaching people how to, like, children how to pray. So there was 2 rakah, there was 3 rakah, 4 rakah, and at the time I was just like, wow, this is a lot, but I was willing to put in the effort. I was willing to put in the energy to really start praying, because I just didn't feel safe. I don't know, like, I just felt like I needed to start praying to protect myself, to speak to God, because I just had so much to say. And at the time, I just knew, like, nobody could understand my situation apart from Allah. So I wanted to start praying. I was really just pushing myself. I started writing down, like, Surah Al-Fatiha. And when I first started, I had so much frustration, honestly, like, because I just really wanted to get it right, but it just doesn't work like that, you know. I had to, the salah, it really teaches you, you know, it really does, like, test your patience. It teaches you sabr. I had to have so much sabr to learn, to actually, like, to practice the salah. And, you know, I had this, like, comfort in my heart, as if, like, Allah was just always with me, telling me, like, it's okay, you know, like you're doing well, you know. It's kind of like the relationship that I have with Allah is like a mother and a father. And it was so beautiful. It's so beautiful, a relationship that I do have with, you know, my Creator, because it was like, I've always just doubted myself, but I just felt like coming into this religion and coming and learning the salah, and that was like, I honestly just felt like something was just like, it's okay, you're going to get it in the end, just be patient, you know, just something to calm you down, you know. So it was just so beautiful. Yeah. But alhamdulillah.
So, how long have you been Muslim for?
So I converted last year, October, but I didn't take, I was calling myself a Muslim, but I didn't take my Shahada until the end of November.
Okay.
Last year. So I think maybe, I would consider it maybe from when I've taken my Shahada. So maybe November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. So, like, yeah. So it's been a good 8 months now.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. That's really good. That's really good. Is anyone else in your family Muslim, or were you the only, you know, Muslim that you knew of, or someone else, or did you know?
The majority of my family are actually Christians, but there was actually 3 people in my family that I grew up with when I was younger, and before I came to the UK, because I'm originally from Tanzania, and they were Christians at the time, but then they converted into Islam. So I've got like 3 members of my family who are Muslim. Well, 4 now, but yes, yeah.
That's really good. Alhamdulillah. Do you talk to them much, or?
I do talk to them. Yes, I do talk to them.
Oh, that's really good. That's really, really good.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes, alhamdulillah. So that was the first part of the show. We're going for a quick ad break now, so come back with us in about 4 to 5 minutes, and we can have the second half of the discussion between Amina and Aisha. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello everyone again. We're back for the second half of the discussion between Amina and Aisha. But before we continue, I'd want to take this moment to kind of reflect a little bit. This show's been going on for a month now, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I've had on this show. And when I think back, it was from the start of Ramadan, and even before Ramadan, and I was speaking to my brother Manolo Malik, who hopefully will be coming back on the show for his own series shortly. But we were discussing, different ways of how we can spread the deen and, strengthen our own iman as well. And it's weird because from that, Manan had an idea to do his talk show on the Return to Islam series. And, with that, he was trying to get different people to come on the show with him. He was either going to do it by himself. And then, he asked me and a few other people. And I just remember jumping on it straight away, saying, yep, get me on the show. I'll do it. And I thought, you've got to jump to things when they're good. And from that, leading from that moment, and, we've had the 4-part series, which was received really well on Ramadan Radio Wolves. And then from that has led on to this series, speaking to different people as reverts for 4 weeks now. And like I said before, I only originally thought I was only going to have myself, my dad, my sister. Who else could I bring on the show? But, I've now got future things to talk about, which is going to be really good. And I want to take this time out, especially to thank the team from Ramadan Radio Wolves. So Uncle Khalid, thank you very much for helping me a lot on this show. He's did all the training with me and taught me a load of the different things, which has been really good. Although he does forget that I'm on the show every week and locks me out. But also to Alvina as well. She's helped me on the show, given me ideas to talk about. And actually, I want to give a massive shout out to Yusuf Malik. Yeah, because when I first took the opportunity to be on the show, I didn't really know what I was going to talk about. It was kind of my idea for the long term is a podcast to discuss a load of different topics. But Yusuf came with the idea and said, on the radio station, we've got a lot of different topics that have been covered. But one area that we haven't got is reverts. We haven't discussed anything about the revert area. And he said, you should do something called the Revert Family Show. So I can't take credit for the title of the show. And I thought, it's a really good idea, actually. I'm going to take that and move forward. So alhamdulillah for that. This has helped us move forward. We've shared a lot of the message from reverts, and we will continue to do so, inshallah, going forward. And hopefully this spreads onto something that I couldn't even imagine for myself. I plan things how I think they should go, but Allah's the best of all planners, and He's planned the best for me. I couldn't even envision the things that have happened. So I'm very grateful for that. And I just want to reflect on these things. You don't know where life is taking you. Yeah, you can only take the opportunities that are given to you at any given moment, and inshallah they will always benefit you. And if they don't benefit you in a way that you don't think is benefiting you, just remember that sometimes a calamity can be a blessing, bringing you closer to Islam, and sometimes what you perceive as a blessing can be a calamity, because it takes you away from your Creator. So remember that in the things that you do in life. So now we have the second part of the show with Aisha and Amina.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So that was really, really good. Alhamdulillah. I really enjoyed you talking to us about your journey. I think one of the questions I want to ask is, because some people when they come into the deen, there's loads of different, sometimes you can get influenced, by people who aren't necessarily on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, and sometimes, especially as a revert, it's very easy to get led into different things that aren't necessarily what Islam is about. Have you experienced anything, any, I'd say, difficulties in...
I have, and I think that's one of the most dangerous things, that when it comes to Islam, that there are so many things that actually that come with Islam. I feel like there's one of the things is there's a lot of bid'ah, and I feel like it's mainly because there are so many different types of Muslims from so many different types of cultures, and some people, they will start to they kind of merge culture with Islam, and it can really just cause a lot of fitna, because especially as a revert, you don't know a lot of things, especially when you're into the deen. You don't know a lot of things, and everybody just has their opinions. I know, I feel like that's quite, it's really, really, you just have to be really careful. Yeah, I think one of the main things is that when people bring culture into religion, into Islam, you can be practicing a lot of things that you shouldn't really be doing, and for that, because you don't know, or some of us, we don't know quite a lot of things, or sometimes we there's so many different groups of people in Islam. They will advise you to do certain things, and because you're just thinking, oh well, this, you want to do it for the sake of Allah, sometimes you can fall into that trap. And yeah, it's quite bad. But I think that's one thing that I've realized as well, is just you've got to really surround yourself around a group of Muslims that really know what they're talking about, and you've just got to be careful and just doing your own research, reading books, and following the Sunnah. I think, in the Hadiths, and just reading a lot, about Islam, and studying before you actually, come into Islam, and knowing what's right and what's wrong. So it's all about just really taking your time with it. That's what I have to say about it. But you just have to be careful. Yeah.
So you say that most of your experience has been positive, and
it's definitely been positive. It's been positive. But it's just sometimes you do get told certain things, and it's like no, that can't be right, and it's like, no, that can't be right at all, so but I think that's that's a bit like the danger zone of being a revert. But other than that, it's been quite positive. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I mean, there's so many videos online as well, that just, that teach you the right things and etc. So, yeah, it's just all about being careful.
Alhamdulillah. So I think you use, logic, because alhamdulillah,
yes.
I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with, the ability to see truth, because it's very
yes.
easy, even on YouTube. I mean, there's so many YouTube videos now, and even that, there's some people that can lead you, astray. And there's people...
I think it's all about praying. it's all about praying and asking Allah for guidance, and asking Him I've been very vocal with Allah, and I've said to Him by making istighfar and just ask Allah, if this is good for me, then make it easy for me, and if this is not good for me, then just take it away from me completely, So it's all about like Allah guiding you, what if you want the truth anyways, Allah will guide you. And yeah. But other than that, it's just being very, very careful. Being very careful.
Alhamdulillah. I think it's really good as well, because I think you've learned a lot as well. Even when I spoke to you when I first heard that you were Muslim, I was very, very, happy, alhamdulillah, that you've learned a lot, even, on your own, or since there was no one else around you that was Muslim, or very little, I should say. So alhamdulillah, that's really, really good, because some people struggle, I guess, when they're on their own, especially as reverts, they come into Islam and sometimes they're on their own, and they don't have anyone, like Eid or just to be around a certain family. How was your first Ramadan and Eid? Did you find it difficult fasting, or how did you find it?
During this Ramadan, I was going through a lot of ups and downs, but alhamdulillah, I managed to fast, and I was around positive people. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm very, very grateful for that. I got to actually, instead of spending Ramadan by myself, I had a friend of mine, and she's a Muslim, and I ended up staying with her family, and they really did like their best to make me feel comfortable, and if I ever needed to talk about anything, they were always there for me. So there was quite a lot of support. There. So alhamdulillah, I'm so grateful for that. I am very grateful for that.
That's really, really good. That's really good.
Yeah.
And like with your, your friends as well, or friends that weren't Muslim, how did they react to things? Because I think obviously with family, you also have your friends who knew who you were before. Did you have difficulty from them, or how did they, take you becoming Muslim?
I had some friends who were Muslim, and I didn't realize that they were Muslim, but they were practicing Muslims. So when they had found out, they were quite happy. But and I had made some new Muslim friends on the way, and they were really happy as well. So alhamdulillah. But then I had one bad experience with someone I was quite close with. And when I had told this person that I had that I was a Muslim, they were just completely put off, completely. They showed me this side of them that I had never seen before, really, because, its true colors really came out. And it really made me sad, because it was like the reality of, it was like, wow, this is what I have to deal with, but this is fine, because I would pick my creator over these people any day. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to live my life. And it's very unfortunate for that person, because I really wanted to thank them for a lot of the things that they had done for me, but I just never got to that point, and it's quite sad. But I always continue to make dua for that person. I always try to keep them in my du'as, because all you can do is just pray for certain people, to be guided. And inshallah, I hope that they do get guided. Inshallah.
Yeah, I mean, so you and your family from Tunisia, is it? Tunisia. Tanzania. Oh, I forgot. Tanzania, alhamdulillah. Have you, especially with, there's no, obviously, racism in Islam, but have you experienced any racism at all or any discrimination? Because I mean, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you have.
In Islam or just in general?
I mean, from like other Muslims or from non-Muslims, since.
From non-Muslims, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this is just when I was quite young, and I still do get like quite a lot of racism, but it's not exactly outspoken. Sometimes you can just be talking to somebody and you can already tell by their body language and on just how they treat you, or just, you know, it's something that's just like it's something that I've just had to get used to. It's quite sad really that it still actually goes on. And it's quite unfortunate for some people who do go through it. But it's not as bad as it was when I first came to the UK. As a child, I did grow up with, you know, I had like, my lips are quite big and my skin is quite fair and my hair is quite, you know, it's not exactly straight. So I did get a lot of, you know, a lot of bullying, and it really did. It was so painful because I just never thought I would be, you know, I would experience something like that. I think racism is a horrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it just destroys people in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I guess this is dunya. It's kind of designed to break your heart, and it's designed to teach you, like, you know, the wisdom behind certain things. And I do understand why I had gone through, you know, I had to go through that. I'm half black and I'm half white.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had to stand firm within, you know, not just supporting black people, but supporting white people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just feel like, why should we be separated because of our skin color and our
Exactly.
skin tone and where we come from? Like, I just think that's wrong in so many different ways. If people just went, you know, if you were to see past that, and you would see like the real beauty of what life is really about. So, yeah.
I find it quite interesting because obviously you said you like started to wear the hijab. Do you find that people treat you, approach you differently from now that you wear the hijab to when you didn't? Because like, I find that quite interesting because with me, I have positive, like more positivity from people who see me with my hijab. But I find that it's interesting because when you do start wearing the hijab, Shaitan puts, you know, what's in your head, and you think, oh, everybody's looking at you, or this, that, and the other, and people are saying negative things. But, you know, obviously sometimes you can get funny looks, but most of it's positive. What about your experience? Yes. Do you find that people have approached you differently? Because obviously before, you know, people don't, even if you're Muslim, you know, you don't wear the hijab, people don't know you're Muslim. So there's no real, people will look at you and they won't really, you can also find people can be, their true colours can come out as well, but people don't know you're Muslim and they talk about religion. But also like when you wear the hijab, you are telling people, this is me, I'm Muslim, before they even talk to you. So there's that aspect to it as well. Like people they will already have an opinion of you sometimes just because of, you know, the hijab.
Yeah.
And I find that really, really interesting. But obviously because you didn't wear the hijab before, do you find that people approach you differently or talk to you differently, or do people avoid you, or do people have more respect for you, or how do people's body language, is it different?
I think one thing is when I started wearing my hijab when I came back to Newcastle. So you know, I had seen most of my old friends, and when they had seen me wearing the hijab, you know, they were quite shocked. It wasn't like, oh my God, you're wearing a hijab, you're a Muslim now. It was just more like, wow, like they could see like, oh, this person must have changed or something must have happened to this person for them to, you know, go down this way of life. Because like it was more like a very positive experience. A lot of my friends I had reunited with were telling me, you know, it really suits you, you know, and you know, most of them weren't wearing hijabs. They're Muslim and they're practicing, but it was really positive to hear, and it was like almost like if they could, it was almost like they've seen me and they've seen that I can put on my hijab and be comfortable with it. So it kind of encouraged them at the same time to you know, to put on like their hijabs as well. So I wasn't expecting something like that to happen.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the hijab it's so powerful. It's been a positive experience. I don't take my hijab off. I feel very uncomfortable if I go out and I take it off, and I feel like I can't really leave the house without it. So it's really like your crown, you know. It makes you really feel like, wow, you know. It really, I think that's just really what changes just the whole aspect of things is wearing the hijab. But it's been a very positive experience so far.
I agree. Alhamdulillah. That's really, really good. That's really good. I find that as well. The hijab is something that, you know, it reminds you as well what you're here for as well. You put it on, you know, remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you want to cover, and then you remember, you know, when you go outside, you're representing Islam, and you're representing, you know, you're giving dawah to people as well. And you know, it's something that I feel is so beautiful, and it just makes you appreciate Islam and your love for the deen. So one other question I want to ask is before coming into Islam, did you know much about Islam? Did you what was your opinion of it? Because obviously there's in the news, and sometimes things are quite negative about Islam. Is there something that you did you know of anything, you know, about Islam, or did you?
I just got told so many bad things about Islam, and it's mainly what the media portrayed. But if people used to try and actually, I think if people used to try and actually tell me about Islam, they wouldn't. I don't know. The dawah wasn't just. It wasn't getting to me, and I think it was actually the person who actually gave me the most effective dawah. Was a taxi driver, and he spoke about the Quran and things like that, and things in the Quran, and that got me a bit interested. But like, it was mainly something that was just like, I really want to try and avoid this, because I've heard so many things like 9/11, and it was just like so many people died, and it was just like, I just thought, like, what kind of a religion is this? Like, is this what they do, like, for their God, you know, to sacrifice people? I just thought, no, I just want to try and avoid this. But never in a million years would I have thought that I was going to become a Muslim. That just never really crossed my mind. You know, it was just, I heard about this, I'm trying to try and avoid it, and I don't want to hear about this again. And then, subhanallah, here we are today, Muslim Revert. So it's been a beautiful journey, really.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. And you know, Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world. So, you know, alhamdulillah, it's I think if people, you know, if people learn and then inshallah Allah will open hearts for them if they actually went out to learn. And this religion that people say is so bad, you know, but it's the fastest growing religion, so alhamdulillah. But you know, thank you so much. Actually, I want to ask you a question. Did you change your name? Did you change your name?
I did change my name.
Yeah, I thought so. I was like, I don't remember your name being that. I was like, I don't remember your name being that. Alhamdulillah.
No, I I can't have this name anymore. And it's so strange. Like, I'm so glad I changed it, to be honest. Like, my Quran teacher was just telling me, you have to change your name, you have to change your name, and I wasn't going to. And then I just thought, like, a Muslim name Dorothy, I would rather not. I would rather be called Amina. It was like a fresh start for me. I was like, a fresh name, new name. And I actually called myself Amina before I even found out that it was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mother's names. I was just like, oh, subhanallah, this is a lovely name. So I really like this for myself. And yeah, it's just been history ever since.
Alhamdulillah. Well, jazakallah khairan for telling us and sharing this journey with us. Thank you very, very much. I think it will help a lot of people, because some people do have questions, and it's good for a platform for reverts to talk about their journey, because sometimes it's not easy.
It's everybody has a different journey to Islam. So and some of the reverts, I've realized they have some stories that are quite similar. But I really do hope that this does benefit somebody, if they're thinking about converting but they're not sure. Maybe this might give them the confidence just to take that that one leap towards Islam, because it is a very beautiful thing. It's very peaceful, and inshallah, hopefully this does benefit people.
Thank you very, very much. And thank
you, Aisha, for everything, for this opportunity.
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.